Welcome along, everybody, to our webinar today. Pedagogy is the problem. Technology can help us to fix it. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you all to Dale Johnson from Arizona State University. So Dale is the Senior Director of I want to get this right, Dale, the Director of Innovation at the University Design Institute at Arizona State. And Dale, I know our audience today from all over the globe are very excited about what you have to share with them and the insights that you have from many years of making a significant and very positive impact on student learning and student outcomes. From my own point of view, I can't wait to hear all the detail. You and I have talked many times, but I want to get into the evidence and the impact and all of that, which I know you're going to share with us. Dale, I no longer remember how we met, but I have a feeling it was with Dr. Kevin Bell, who I believe is joining us today as well from Adelaide University, that introduced us
Yeah.
a few years ago. We've had some fabulous conversations since then. So, Dale, a warm, very warm welcome to you. Very excited to have you with us today. And I'm going to hand over to you and let you present, and the audience can ask questions as Dale goes. So please feel free to pop your questions in, and I'll be able to let Dale know you've got a question to clarify anything he might raise. So over to you, Dale, and thank you.
Thank you for that kind introduction. Good day, everyone. I will put in a plug for Kevin. I know he's speaking in one of the future sessions. So if you like what we're talking about here, I'm sure you'll be excited about what he has to say as well. I am the Senior Director of Digital Innovation at Arizona State University and our University Design Institute. I've been at ASU for 14 years now, and I've been in this position for the last 6. We work all over the world. We've got clients. I'm currently working in Colombia, Mexico. We have 8 universities in Africa that we're collaborating with, in South Korea. So it's an exciting opportunity to talk with you today, get some feedback on these ideas, and share what we're doing with the University Design Institute. We focus on 3 things with our colleagues: reimagine, redesign, and rebuild in my case, the digital instructional process. I work a lot with faculty members at all the universities I mentioned. We have a number of design imperatives that guide our work, like focusing on renovating university mission, developing leadership and culture, providing new financial models and partnership support, doing investigation discovery, and the last 2, digital solutions and teaching and learning, are my combination there. That's the sweet spot where I spend my time helping other universities. When we start, I want to give you a little bit of context here. We talk about digital infrastructure. There are 3 major realms you're all familiar with. I'm going to focus on the academic realm. I've developed a model I call a Delta, digitally enabled learning and teaching analysis, which enables me to work quickly with colleagues to establish what works and what doesn't work within your digital infrastructure. And today I'll talk a little bit about something I've created called the 4E learner experience to give us some context for this. Really, what we're trying to figure out is how to create learner-centric approaches. The ultimate objective is improved student success. So if we can digitally enable that, then we're making major achievements and contributions to student success. What I try to do is focus on the outcomes from that process. This represents the professional world that I work in and have worked in for the last 40 years, working in small teams, collaboratively to solve problems, dealing with complexities related to that, and developing and nurturing curiosity to ensure the success of the team. So when I think about what that means for our students, we need to prepare them for these kinds of interactions. How do they work in small groups? This is a case of faculty interacting with students and staff. And here's something of a public meeting. Our students are going to be leaders in these environments, and it's our goal to help them prepare for that. So a lot of what we've done in the past has been oriented towards knowledge sharing and retention. And now what we're focused more on is cultivating these capabilities to succeed professionally and personally. You've heard the terms many times, things like creative thinking, critical thinking, curiosity, all the skills that come with the successful professional life. And I hope you can relate to that because I'm probably on 20 different teams right now, and I suspect you are as well. So as we work through those complexities, we need these skills to support us through a variety of different scenarios. And unfortunately, what we have is we have a 2,000-year-old model. You'll recognize this Greek amphitheater. Here it is 150 years ago. Here we are 60 years ago. We had the blackboards that slid up and down. Here we are probably 30 years ago. We switched to whiteboards now. Here we are today. We've added technology, but you can still recognize the essential model, that is amphitheater with lecture. So I'll give you bonus points if somebody can name the technology that the Greeks developed for us 2,000 years ago for the teaching process. Put it in the chat if you can think of it. What technology did the Greeks gift us as part of their instructional infrastructure? So now we have distractions galore. We've actually added bad technology to bad pedagogy. Unfortunately, this is the norm today, and we all recognize this. And I would call it the 21st century problem that we face. We should stop adding technology to a broken pedagogy. So that's our orientation starting point there. And here's really the new opportunity that's presented. This is a classroom at Arizona State University. And here we see students working in teams, collaborating to solve problems, faculty members circulating, asking questions, using Socratic method to create an environment which promotes curiosity, critical thinking. And in this case, we're restructuring the pedagogy and then thinking about how we can support that with technology. So this is our ultimate goal, is to reframe our pedagogical process by developing technological tools. So the operative question becomes, how do we use those resources and systems to enable student success? And that's where Quitch and other tools and techniques come into play. Because what we've done here is we've thought about the processes that we're using, hybrid, blended, online, remote, flipped, HighFlex, but we haven't really thought about them from the learner perspective. These are really our professional processes and the terminology you'll notice is often confused. People use these terms interchangeably, and it becomes more of a challenge to sort it out than it probably should be. So what happens if we flip the perspective and think about it from the learner? This is where I've created a new language. I use these terms to explore what I think of as a digitally enriched learner experience, an extended learner experience, an enhanced learner experience, and an expanded learner experience. Those are the things that are really changing in that pedagogy. And that's how technology can help us. And I'll go through these now and explain what I mean by each of them to give you some context. So the 4E model looks at pedagogy on the vertical axis, technology on the horizontal axis. We start with digitally enriched learner experience. That is our existing pedagogy with added resources. That's what we've been doing for the last 30 years with our learning management systems. That's what we are comfortable with now. That is really the starting point. And I would say the current universities are probably at 100% digital enrichment. Almost every faculty member is doing some form of digital enrichment. Now, digitally extended learning is what we did during COVID. We extend the lecture out, and this has a long history. So for those who are historians of pedagogy, we used to have mail packets that went out to digitally extend or to extend learner experience. Then we had radio. Then we had television. Then we had the synchronous broadcast, and then we had COVID with Zoom and all that other synchronous work. So digitally extended learning experience has been around for a long time, and we've got now a good history there, but it's not an improvement in the pedagogy. Where we see improvement is digitally enhanced learner experience. That's where we are using the resources to enable a more interactive pedagogy, and that's where Quitch becomes part of the solution set. What we want is we want the digitally enhanced work to enable new pedagogies in the classroom. And finally, digitally expanded learning. And that's the fully online asynchronous model. And we're now familiar with that. That's become much more commonplace in the last 20 years. So let me give you an example. At Arizona State University, we have 100% of our courses digitally enriched. Every course, every section gets a Canvas shell where the faculty member loads the syllabus, loads any other content that they want, videos, anything they want. You know that story. We also enabled all of our classrooms to do digitally extended learning during COVID. It's not as popular now. Some of you would call this the high flex model, but we still have it. It's still available if a student can't come to class in a residential model. Digitally enhanced, this is where we're talking about the transformation. This is the hybrid model. At ASU, we've done many of our first year courses, which were woefully inadequate for the learners, and we had extremely high failure rates. So we had to digitally enhance those. And I worked on that process for about 7 years before I took my current job. And then finally, I mentioned the digitally expanded environment. ASU now has over 100,000 online degree-seeking students. That's more than our entire residential population, which is around 95,000. So we've more than doubled our size in the last 15 years just through the digitally expanded learning. So today I'm going to focus on digitally enhanced learning because that's a case study that I can talk to in depth. If you have any questions about the 4E model, feel free to hit me up during the Q&A session. And I want to start out by asking the big question, why do we need to do this? There's always a lot of doubt about the need to do redesign, and we all face it daily, and we have to have a good story for that. So this is our story. I use college algebra as a case study, but I also have case studies on biology and chemistry, physics. We did it with economics, history, a whole range of different courses, even philosophy courses. This course has over 10,000 students enrolled per year now. We embraced a digitally enhanced model with McGraw-Hill ALEX, and you can see our traditional model, we were only getting 60% success rate. This goes back a decade. I have data that goes all the way back to the beginning of the 20th century, 21st century, and we never could really move the needle until we did digital enhancement. So when you're failing almost 40% of your students or more, then you're going to have a lot of dissatisfied students and a lot of frustrated faculty. When we did digital enhancement, we saw a transformation. And we ended up with a 17 percentage point gain in our success rate in the first 3 years. That resulted in thousands of additional students who were successful in college algebra. And that's the kind of transformation that we were looking for. We did some additional adjustments to our pedagogy, and we ended up with even higher success rates as a result of that. This is just one example where you can literally count the thousands of students that are making it to the next level and not getting stuck in our introductory math course every year. So we've come up with a structure with a mission to enable student success and then some objectives here: improve critical thinking, increase student subject mastery, increase student retention, improve instructor insight. Each one of these is measurable. And our mission, we have a goal to achieve 90% first year student retention. We're in the high 80s now. We're always, as a public university with open admission, we're always struggling to achieve this goal. If you're in a selective or an elite university, you probably already have in the high 90s for retention because that's more of a selection bias there. But for us, that's always been a struggle. When we started this journey 25 years ago, we were in the 70s for first year retention, and now we're in the high 80s. In terms of critical thinking, we want to do interactive teamwork during class time. I think of class time as the golden hour. That's the most precious time for us. We don't want to waste it on lecture. And I'm using that very clearly. We don't want to waste it on lecture because live lecture is a waste of time in this new pedagogical environment. Now, faculty don't like to hear that because they're accustomed to lecturing, but unfortunately, that's a reality that we face today. So we want to ensure 90% of the students get a grade of C or better. In our model, A, B, and C are passing grades, D, E, and F, or D, E, and W are failing grades. We want to reduce our withdrawal rate to less than 5%. In some of our courses, our withdrawal rate's as high as 20% in biology and physics and chemistry. And that just means the student paid for the class, doesn't get a grade, and has to pay for it again in order to try to earn a grade. So try to get it under 5%, and then improve instructor insight. This is really critical because if the instructors can't tell what the students are doing, then they can't make adjustments. So Quitch is an example which provides rapid feedback for instructors to enable them to make adjustments in real time. This is the dilemma we face. We are all competing with multiple distractions. You're probably looking at your phone or maybe even checking your email on a side screen right now. I understand that. So I'm competing with all of that. And I have to think about that in context. When I get in the classroom or when I'm in a forum like this, I know that there's competing and distracting information. So I have to figure out ways to change that structure. And the way we think about it is a quote from an intellectual hero of mine, Buckminster Fuller. We never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So that is the objective here, not just to add technology to the old pedagogy, but to build that new pedagogy and create a digitally enhanced model of the class. So what do we mean? This is the nuts and bolts of this. What we mean is we take an intellectual framework. This is ICAP framework that has been widely cited, one of the most widely cited papers in learning science, which looked at four pedagogies. There's passive, which is your traditional listening lecture; active, which is if somebody's actually doing something more; constructive, when they're reflecting out loud and summarizing the work; and then interactive, when they're actually working in a group to defend their position, make arguments, establish their intellectual positions. So our objective here is to get to the highest level of pedagogical success, which is interactive. And again, this is learning science. When the author, Dr. Michelin Chi, wrote this paper in 2014, she found that each change in pedagogy results in an 8 to 10% improvement in student learning. Think about that. You go from a failing student in a large lecture, which was me in 1983 in university physics, to a successful student in an interactive environment, which was me in the physics lab with a group of 3 other classmates working in small teams. So we had, in that one physics class in 1983, I had both extremes. I had the passive and I had the interactive. Well, the interactive saved me. I would have failed physics if it hadn't been for that lab experience, because that was the piece that I connected with. So I recommend you look at this. I've made a connection there. You can take a screenshot of that and use it as your tool if you find it helpful. I always encourage people to cite this work. The author of this won the Edan Prize in 2023, which is, I think, a $3 million prize. And she actually got more money than a Nobel Prize winner gets for that. So it's really quite widely cited. Now, we also rely on Bloom's taxonomy to help structure this conversation. I think about this as a transformation of the learning process. We push all of the instructional material that we used to do in live lecture into the digital environment. That frees up time for interactive learning in class. So whether you're using Canvas or using Quitch or using combinations of those, or you're using Alex from McGraw-Hill, you're pushing the instructional process online. That's where students acquire and assess knowledge. And this is really important because faculty are often frustrated that students don't do the pre-work. They say, well, I'd love to do this. I'd love to flip my class, or I'd love to try the hybrid model, but I don't trust the students because they don't read the material and they don't really know the work. But if you do it properly, the assessment process generates data that you can use to keep students honest. So part of the grading process is, did they do the knowledge acquisition and knowledge assessment before class? If you don't give them some incentive to do that, they won't do the work, because the payoff is the applied interactive concept exercise. That's where you ask them to use that knowledge in a way that demonstrates that they did understand it. And then I've added a fourth step here. I call it a simulation or assimilate. And that's where you ask them to give a second level of application through either another quiz or some type of a submitted assignment. And this 4A framework enables a faculty member to quickly transform their live lecture into a digitally enhanced model. This is where they record all of their lectures, create some kind of assessment structure in their learning management system, develop their interactive classroom exercises, and then create some type of follow-up assimilation activities. That all requires time. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's beneficial to the learner and it is very helpful also for the faculty because they get burnt out also lecturing to half-empty classrooms. And we want to encourage students to come to class and do the applied work. Here's an example of a class where you build every week another thematic interactive exercise, whether it's scientific method or cells or photosynthesis. The faculty members at Arizona State built out this kind of rhythm. So every week the students know they do the pre-work, they do the assessment, they do the applied activity, they do the assimilation. We still have exams to maintain the academic rigor and ensure that they're not just freeloading on the whole process. But the results have been quite positive. So for faculty members, no more of this. We don't do any more chalk and talk. It doesn't have any value in this model. We're digitally enhancing that. So we do all of that online. The students are doing a lot of this kind of learning where they have access to the content for an extended period of time. We find that they go back and watch the lecture videos multiple times. That's a huge benefit for the faculty because in class, if a student misses something, it's gone forever. It's ephemeral. But online, if they don't understand it, they stop, they pause, they reflect, they go back, they watch it again. So what you're building their knowledge base on a much stronger foundation. They're not simply trying to keep up with a faculty member who may be running behind schedule and trying to accelerate their lecture. Give them time, they do the work, and then they come to class where we have synchronous activities that allow them to process that knowledge. And this is where the deeper learning occurs. So use the learning science, use the digitally enhanced pedagogy, and you get an increased learner experience. Of course, we are pushing these C's: collaboration, communication, critical thinking, creativity, and now I've added curiosity to my list, although I neglected to do it on this presentation. But if we're focused on another transformation which is underway with artificial intelligence, we need to help students develop these skills in order to be successful in an AI world. They're going to be in our jobs in the year 2050. So we need to think about that practically and try to project out and ask, what can we do to prepare them for that environment? Well, curiosity and judgment are going to be two critical pillars of success. If they can keep those two alive, they'll be successful professionally and personally. And these are the skill set that are going to enable that. What happened in biology? Well, this is a case where I mentioned earlier we had 20% withdrawal. That's the orange bar in spring of 2015. And I want you to notice that we had less than 2% with the digitally enhanced pedagogy. So the faculty asked what happened, and they did some analysis, and they talked to students, and they looked at their assessments, and they figured out that the interactive work in class was creating a social network. What the students were lacking in lecture is a social network. They're not making connections with their classmates. They're simply connecting with the professor. So if we enable them to connect with their classmates, in our case, we have a table of 6. That means they have 5 colleagues they can call on or ask for help. We mix them up after 8 weeks, and they get 5 more classmates that they can ask for help. They are much more comfortable asking a classmate for assistance than they are asking a professor because they are intimidated by the professor and they don't want to reveal their ignorance. So give them social network, facilitate this using a digitally enhanced pedagogy. And then you'll notice that the final results were also better. This we attributed to the time on task, enabling them to look at the lectures repeatedly and to go back before the exam and review them also created a much stronger learning outcome. And we've been able to document that now through the technology and the learning management system to show that students are doing that. They're going back, they're looking at the videos, they're reviewing the instructional material. I'm sure Quitch can also demonstrate this through their dashboards. That is the real value added for the digital enhancement that we're doing. So I've mentioned this already, but we've been at it for quite a long time and we've worked on a lot of different courses. I hear faculty say, well, you can't do it with STEM. Oh, we started with STEM. Or they'll say, you can't do it with social sciences. Well, we did psychology, we did philosophy. You can do it with anything. The model is infinitely flexible. And the flexibility comes around the interactive concept exercise in class. That's where the faculty have the ability to flex this model to make it work for them. So with philosophy, you're debating philosophical treatises and you're applying them to conditions in the real world. With psychology, you're looking at these psychology experiments and debating, is that a relevant experiment or is it not relevant in our world? Is it something that's still universal? Is it a concept that has been debunked? Having these debates, history is the same way. It's fascinating how much students are eager to have those discussions, but they've never had the venue or opportunity before. Digitally enhanced pedagogy gives them that opportunity. So I want to spend the last few minutes talking about how we do this. I mentioned how difficult it can be. For some of you, you've been on the front line for years, maybe decades. You know it's tough. You need some kind of structure to make this happen. So I say first an intellectual framework and then an instructional infrastructure. These are the two pieces of the puzzle. So if you've got the ICAP framework, you've got the 4A process for digitally enhanced pedagogy, and you've got some kind of digital infrastructure, you're ready to go. That's what you need. You got to work with faculty. So the key is to get them comfortable with this process. And what I found is there are four components to that. There's leadership support, faculty development, instructional design, and infrastructure. And each of these is mission critical. If you don't have one, you're going to lose control and the whole process will fail. So let's talk about each of them in context. When I say leadership support, I mean you've got to put together leaders from four levels: the faculty, the department chair, the college dean, and the provost. If there's any one of these four people who has any doubts about digital enhancement, you're going to fail. If you can get alignment, four levels of alignment, then you have a shot at success. It doesn't mean you will be successful, but you'll have a better probability of success. So I always look for faculty leaders, collaborative chairs, cooperative deans. The deans usually have a little bit of money they can throw at the challenge and they can support faculty members. And of course, the provost has to be talking about this as part of the vision for the university. Then we need training for faculty. And I talk about three types here. We need pedagogical training. They may not be comfortable with Socratic method or with facilitating large groups of students. This is important because if you're an exceptional lecturer, that doesn't mean you're going to be an exceptional teacher in an interactive environment. You need new skills. So we can give you those skills. We also have technology. They have to be able to navigate the learning management system or Quitch or whatever it is, Alex or whatever else you're using in order to be successful. If it's AI, they need to be able to navigate that. And then finally, those new skills are something that they can develop. In our case, in the United States, K-12 has spent a lot of time helping faculty, professors, or teachers make this transformation over the last 30 years so that they are much more well equipped to do group facilitation. In higher education, we lag behind, frankly. We need to catch up with our K-12 colleagues to get these skills. Here's an example of a faculty member I worked with. He was actually the first one, Dr. Dave Pearson. He'd been lecturing to large groups of students, 200 to 300 students for 30 years. And after we worked together for a year, he said, I wish I had known about enhanced learning earlier. I would have never lectured. which gave me a lot of confidence that we could do it with other faculty. He was 70 years old when he made this transformation, and he became so convinced that he then went out, became a consultant, and started training other faculty members. This was his second career when he retired from the university. He was going to Peru, Mexico, Spain, Japan, and teaching other faculty members to digitally enhance their courses. So when we talk about support, we mean there's people behind the faculty member. We have instructional designers, technologists, vendor personnel, experts in Quitch, for example, can help you solve problems faster than you might be able to solve them yourself. Graphic designers, video producers. This is a key component of the model. If you can't videotape the lectures, you can't build the digital infrastructure that you need. Learning analysts to help you solve the problems along the way. And finally, leaders. This team is the new success factor. It's like the X factor here. If you don't have these people on your current team, you need to get them. Fortunately, at Arizona State, we've been building these teams for the last 25 years. We have all of these different levels of expertise and specialization. It made my job a lot easier when I was working with faculty because I could call on video producers, for example, to create all of the lectures and give faculty the help they need. So if you don't have them, figure out how to develop these skill sets, especially with instructional designers. They are the glue that holds this whole process together, providing everything from training to project management to research on innovative ideas. This is a key person on your team. I think of them as kind of the animator or the guide throughout the whole process here. Also, when I talk about infrastructure, I'm talking about different levels of infrastructure. There's the video storage and service. If you don't have money, you can use YouTube. We've been through many of them. We've been through Wistia and others. We've used a lot over the last 20 years. We're now using Amazon Web Services. We built our own web server. So whatever works for you is the most important thing is that you've got strategic and financially sustainable video storage and serving. Then you need the digital learning environment, and then you need some kind of analytic systems. Again, you can mix and match here. The key is to actually do this strategically and not just tactically, not each faculty member trying to navigate, but have some kind of support service that can help the faculty members quickly find the data and use it for their own learning analytics. I mentioned Alex earlier. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I think it, and Quitch has similar kinds of capabilities here. So why is it important to have these kinds of digital tools? Primarily to drive new insight, because our old model was a black box. Faculty could not answer fundamental questions like who needs help, what do they need help with, and what's the best way to help. If they cannot answer these questions, they cannot be more productive and effective. So the tools answer these questions. And here's an example of a data set from one group of students. This is about 100 students in one section. There were 370 topics in this particular subject, college algebra, that the faculty selected in ALEX. They configured the system. So that's the vertical axis. The horizontal axis is one semester in our system from August to December. And what you're looking at is you're looking at the lines are individual students progressing through the course. The good thing about ALEX is at the beginning of the course, it does an initial knowledge check and it can identify what students know about algebra. You can see the range here from nothing to roughly half of the topics already mastered, which has always been the case, but we never had a way to see it and to respond to it before. So ALEX gives us a tool to respond now. So here's a student that goes from 0 to hero in one semester. Each time you see a vertical line, that's mastery. Each time you see a horizontal line, that's learning, time on task. So you could see they struggled a little bit in the middle around October 6th, but they continued on and they successfully completed in one semester. Here's a student that was already halfway done on the first day. And they were completely done by the middle of the semester. So we had to change our whole pedagogy here. They now take the final exam when they're ready. We call it test when ready. We don't make them wait till the end of the course. If they can finish in 6 weeks, we're happy for them. We're not here to punish them. We're here to educate them. And this student is done with the class on October 6th and can focus on the other classes that they're taking. So fantastic. Maybe they shouldn't have even been in college algebra. They may have been ready for something like calculus, but in this case, they placed into here. So we want to give them the final exam when they're ready and they're off to the next course. And of course, this is a student we're searching for. This is a student that struggled at about halfway and never really recovered, never got ready for the final exam, never was able to complete the class. So we've had to adapt so that the faculty members are searching for these students and are responding as quickly as possible to see if we can't save them from failure. Here's an example of some more infrastructure. This is a video studio. You can see it's a rather simple process, green screen, high quality microphone. We use a tablet called Wacom that enables faculty members to write on their PowerPoint presentation, but it's a very simple setup. Generates this kind of product for us. You can see the tablet in the front of the professor. He can write on that and it will appear behind him on the screen. That's a projection on the green screen. And this faculty member, Dave Pearson, wanted to have students in the recording so that he could interact with them because he didn't just want to lecture to the camera. So we gave him a stipend and he hired a couple of students and they were able to participate actively in the lectures. It was a good model that was much more interactive than your traditional stand and deliver single lecture video. And we've got lots of examples. If you don't already have them, feel free to take a screenshot of this page. We probably have 20 or 30 different types of videos that we've produced, from your stand and deliver types to field videos showing industrial processes, or videos of microscopic organisms that students normally couldn't see because they didn't have access to that high technology. All of these are, as you probably know, widely available now, many, many different types of videos. So when you invest in this instructional infrastructure, you're actually getting a benefit, 2-for-1 benefit. You get the enhanced courses on campus and the expanded courses online. So everybody loves buy one, get one free. And what we found is all of the recordings we were doing to grow to 100,000 students online are all useful now for digitally enhancing our campus courses. These are the benefits that we're reaping now from making those investments. Finally, I talk about the classroom. I like to call it the learning studio. It doesn't have to be that complex, and you don't need a lot of technology. You'll notice they don't even have computers on the desk here anymore. The students bring their own laptops. They sit in these semicircular tables. They have really 5 things: flat floor, rounded tables, whiteboards, audiovisual equipment, and high Wi-Fi access. So this on the side, you see the instructor control panel. So the instructor can control what's on the screens at each of the student tables. And it gives the faculty members the ability to share information and then get students to share among each other. I think the whiteboard is really the key to success because that's the most nimble or agile tool in the toolkit. Students can get up there, jot down some ideas, and then they can process them collaboratively. So I mentioned Delta at the outset. If you're interested in learning more, I put together these different categories and I do analyses around different things like faculty support operations, student retention, recruitment, etc., all focused on the learner experience. It's just a way to organize the chaos because there's so much to think about. If you have a structure like this, it makes it a little bit easier to manage. And I finally finish with this quote: if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a prototype is worth 1,000 meetings. You've got to start building. Get a faculty member who's interested, ready, willing, and able. Dive in, build a course, learn from it. Don't just talk about it, because time for talk is over. We're into the prototype phase. We're even in a mass production phase at Arizona State. So get in the game if you're not already doing it, and make it part of your culture. If you have any questions or comments, you're welcome to talk now. I'll be happy to talk. We've got probably another 25, 30 minutes here. And then feel free to email me if you want as well, dale.johnson@asu.edu. I look forward to the conversation. So Is anyone willing to guess what the technology the Greeks gave us was?
We have no takers on that one, Dale.
The price was a round trip to London with 7 days at a four-star hotel. So if you can't get it, I'm sorry.
Okay, we've got
Sundials?
sundials.
No.
Nope.
It's actually a teaching technology. Yeah, well, the Greeks didn't give us the stone tablet. That was probably the Abyssinians or someone before them. Um, those are pedagogy, so Socratic method, absolutely. Think about it, technology. What technology do we use when we're in large auditoriums, typically? That's it, microphone. Okay. So,
Hey.
voice amplification. Think about it. 2000 years ago, no voice amplification. They built the amphitheater specifically to amplify their voice. And we've been using it ever since. But we've had voice amplification for at least 50 years in the lecture halls since the 1960s. And so we're talking maybe 60 years now, easy. We're talking about a 2,000-year-old technology that we think is normal. And so sometimes we normalize these things because we can't think outside the box. We do not need that anymore. We do not need the amphitheater, but we still have it. So, Rebecca, I guess you get the all expense paid trip to London.
Rebecca will
As
make
soon
sure and
as
follow up on that for you.
as soon as I win the lottery, there's a caveat. That was the little tiny print at the bottom of the screen. Good work.
Dale, that was a fantastic presentation. I enjoyed every
Thank
single
you.
second of it, I've got to say. And even though we have talked many times, I've learned an awful lot from this today, and I'm loving this framework, I've got to say. I am going to let other people ask some questions here. We had one comment towards the beginning was about the rapid feedback available to instructors is so important. I couldn't agree more. One of the reasons I built Quitch so that I could see exactly what is happening with my 500 students. We don't have a way of knowing until they do that initial piece of assessment if we don't use these type of tools that you talk about.
I use the term rapid remediation. If we're
Mm.
not delivering rapid remediation, we're not maximizing the value of the technology. Which Alex, other technologies are really created to remediate as quickly as possible. The longer a student goes with a misunderstanding, the worse it gets.
That's exactly right. Dale, we've got another one there for you.
Yeah. So the question here is, you mentioned about the importance of social network in the classroom. How have you seen that extended when students use the online tools? So we enable the same kinds of conversations through our discussion boards in learning management system and through other tools like Slack that we're offering students now. It's harder for us to do online, ironically, even though social networks really started up online as a phenomena. But we found it's harder for us to get the students organized in the fully online sections. With the addition of Slack, they've auto or self-organized, which is really great because now it's not just professor setting up the discussion thread and students doing some kind of response. It's them saying, I'm interested in this topic. Let's organize the Slack channel, and they go off. So think about that as additional tools in our digital toolkit. Now, in the classroom, all we're really doing is putting them together and giving them time. We don't need to do too much. They're naturally social. Once we do some of those ice break exercises on the first day of class, they begin to work together. Of course, they have all the problems that all of our teams have ever had. You've all had slackers on your teams. You've all had dysfunctional leaders. You've all had tyrants. We've all had these. So in the student group, there's going to be all of those problems. The goal is to get them used to solving those problems. If we give them hundreds of opportunities to work with slackers, when they get to their first job, they'll know how to deal with slackers. it won't be a surprise to them that their colleagues not doing the work and they're getting dumped on. And they're not going to let it go, right? They're not going to say, "Oh, what can I do about it?" They're going to have the tools they need to deal with the tyrant boss or the slacker colleague, or that whatever the problem is that's arising in their teamwork.
And it's
Thank you, Catherine
interesting.
in Seattle.
It's interesting, Dale, you say that because you and I, as I said, have spoken for some time. This year at university, and we just started this week, I introduced a new unit on business skills for career success, essential business skills. And I did exactly what your framework said. I had a recorded session for beforehand. They did some quizzes. They came into class, and what I did was I broke them up in groups and I got them to work on some butcher's paper because we didn't have enough whiteboards. The energy in that room was absolutely phenomenal. I then got them to
Yeah.
move around and to look at what did you learn from looking at what your colleagues had to say. And that many of them came up and said, "Thank you, that was a great session at the end." And it was simply because they were having a great time at that social network, as you said. They were learning from one another things they wouldn't ask me, they were asking one another. So I saw it
Yeah.
in full flight myself this week, and I have to say I thought it worked fabulously
You've
well,
done the
Dale.
prototype. So
Yep,
now you see the prototype and you see the reaction. Do more of it, right? Next week, spin up another exercise.
yep,
Even if you can't
exactly.
spend the entire class on it, if you give them
Yeah,
15 minutes, it's rewarding.
yeah.
And the real objective is to give them more and more opportunities to exercise these skills. And that gives them confidence. You don't want them going out in the world saying, "I know how to cite all of the science around chemistry, but I can't work with a biologist or a physicist or
Correct.
an engineer to solve a chemistry's problem."
Mm.
That's kind of where we are. Is
Yeah,
the more chance they have to practice, the stronger they'll be, and the more successful the university will be because we're creating graduates that are in demand.
yeah.
So I see a question also. This is Alex from Quitch. You mentioned that, Alex, the software can identify learner performance in real time to make learning adaptive. What are your thoughts on the next step on how asynchronous technologies like Quitch can help support it? So what we are doing is we're taking the pulse of the student. We know there's a learning process in every student, and that might be faster in some and slower in others. But unlike a doctor who could stick a stethoscope on our chest and get our heart rate or take our pulse on our wrist, we've never had those tools before. What Quitch and Alex and others do is they give us the pulse.
Mhm.
That's what we're looking for. And the professors are then, they have to learn how to use that data. So if I told you, "Hey, your blood pressure is 200 over 120," the doctor would immediately know, "Uh-oh, I know that's out of alignment." So if in a professor's case, they don't know what the alignment looks like is that okay? 200 over 120? I don't know. What's the context? So it's not just the tool, it's the context that we're creating. And you'll see with what we've seen, which you'll see with Quitch and Alex and others, is the professors begin to become intuitive, just like a doctor. I hear the number and I know there's a problem. Now I have to do my work to diagnose the problem and solve the problem, but I immediately know there's something there. So if a student, for example, in Alex, we ask them to do 60 minutes of math every day, well, we can see if they do it or not. And if they don't do it, we can call them on it. Hey, they come to class 3 times a week, by the way. They still come to class because that's the social component. And they're doing Alex while they're in class. They're actually sitting there and they're talking to their classmates and they're doing Alex in real time. And they're asking the questions to the teaching assistants and the professor. But they're also being monitored. So if they don't do the work on the days that they're not in class, the professor can call them on that and say, "Hey, Dale, I saw you didn't do any math the last 3 days. What's going on?" "Ah, sorry, prof. I had a paper I had to write in English. I didn't have time to do my algebra. I'm on it now. The paper, I submitted it last night at 1 a.m. and now I can focus on algebra." "Okay, well, catch up because we don't want you falling behind." That conversation happens literally dozens of times every class meeting. Just that kind of conversation, don't fall behind, stay up, make sure and that comes directly from the technology giving us that pulse. So there's a question here. I'm getting a couple now, so I need to go back. Hold on.
Yeah.
Need to back up just a bit because the question's just powered in here. You called out the importance of faculty training and enablement. This is often overlooked. Have you seen really good examples of institutions that spend time and resources in doing this well? How have they successfully justified the perceived cost of this versus sticking with what they know? Cost benefit analysis comes back to student retention. When we invest in a student, we select them, we bring them in, we matriculate them, we enroll them, we educate them. That's a huge investment. It's an investment by the professors, investment by the university, and investment by the government. So if they leave, that's a loss for all of those groups. And we've never really accounted for that. We always said, the students left, we really can't do anything about it. But there's a huge hidden cost to that. So we finally embraced that. And I've seen some universities actually calculate the cost of a student that withdraws or de-enrolls. So when we looked at that, we said first year students, we're losing the largest percentage. We need to invest in that group. That's our target population. And we need to find ways to help them. That's what the genesis of all of this was. Then that justified training the faculty, investing in technology, doing the instructional design work, doing the video production. It was all justified by retention. And as you saw in algebra, if we were wiping out 40% of our first year class to failure, we were never going to reach our 90% first year retention rate. It was a physical impossibility. You just can't get there when you're killing 40% of your first year students in algebra. Same was true in physics. Sometimes 50% of students were failing physics or withdrawing. So we're very practical at Arizona State. We said that's unacceptable. We invested to change that number, and it worked for us. So if I did the math and I said, okay, 1,200 students were retained over the previous level because of our investment, that's millions of dollars in future earnings from their enrollment and from their success in their professional life. So it actually turns out to be a great investment as long as you have that perspective. It's like the economists doing the analysis of future expected return on investment. That's the way we thought about it. You can't take a short-term view or you'll never get there. There's just not enough argumentation to make the case on short term. So checking the pulse, expectation management for students, training, yep. All those things are critical. And the final one says, let's see, Kevin, have to run into the issues with overlap between mostly and almost all online, high flex delivery versus fully online. Do you allow students to switch between modalities? We don't. We actually have built a firewall. And that was really to protect the students from us. Here's the story. Changing the culture at the university was high risk because online students are easily forgotten. So 17 years ago, we made a strategic decision to build a firewall. If they enroll in fully online, 100% asynchronous courses, they stay in that modality. They cannot take classes at the campus. And that forced us to provide all services, both administrative and academic, online. And that's something that we had to adapt to. It took a long time, for example, to get the provost and the financial aid office and the advisory and career services and everybody online. But that firewall forced us to do that. We have 100% services. They never come to campus for any reason, and we don't require them to come to campus. So those are kind of the rules of the game. Now, with HighFlex, what we say is there is certain conditions where you may need to be in a HighFlex modality. If you're sick and you can't come to class, you have a contagious disease, then we're ready to adapt to that, like COVID. We also found that if we have overflow sections, let's say there are 1,200 students and we can only accommodate 1,000 in the seats in our classrooms, then those 200 students, we can't just tell them, tough luck, you can't go to class this semester. We've created a model where they can do parallel instruction online so that they can complete that course for credit at the same time. Sometimes they do it by choice, and sometimes they're forced into it if they don't register early enough for the course. Once the seats are full, we can't put more students in those classrooms. So those are the adaptations we've made. But it's been for us, it's been important to understand the psychology and the needs of the online learner, and they are dramatically different from those of our traditional residential. I would add one more data point. Our median age for online students is almost 10 years higher than the median age for residential students. So we're really talking about people who are working with family and community obligations, and they can't come to campus. They may even live thousands of kilometers away. And all that's a good thing because we're really trying to create access and open up opportunity for those students. So for us, those were the shifts in our mindset and our culture. A lot of thank yous. We appreciate that. I'm grateful that we had this opportunity. Okay, so here's a comment. I'm currently developing the innovation Canvas LMS where students receive context-aware semantic feedback as they work through the innovation process within the LMS. Good. That sounds like the first step. So provide guidance at the right moment without giving away the answers. AI is going to enable a lot of this. I'm glad you're doing this because when I started the process 13 years ago in my work here, we didn't have AI and a lot of the tools, we didn't have Quitch. Alex was really quite immature still. There wasn't a lot to work with. So we were really trying to scrape together innovators like yourself who were willing to take risks and do something new. Now there's AI embedded in Canvas, in Blackboard, in D2L, and Brightspace. Those are all toolkits now that have AI enablement and we can start to get a lot more of what we were looking for. For me, it's like a flowering of opportunity here with AI because we're going to see a lot of things that used to require a tremendous amount of investment to build are now relatively easy to build with AI. So I do think it enhances feedback. Your semantic feedback enhances learning. I absolutely agree. Okay. So I'm a learning designer in a team that is already incorporating interactive experiences in our online content. I love your 4A digitally enhanced learning process. Thank you, Rebecca. Feel free to steal my stuff. I always tell colleagues, I am doing this because I think it's important. If you want to steal an idea and you want to rebrand it as your college or your university brand with your logo and your colors, do it. I don't have any pride of ownership that way. I think it's really, and a lot of this isn't new. I mean, frankly, I'm just putting together ideas that have existed for a long time, and I'm trying to make them easy to understand for faculty members and students who don't really care about pedagogy, never heard that word before, and don't want to invest any time in thinking about it, but need new techniques and tools. So feel free. I don't know if we can share out the slides with everybody if you want send them if they want to send their email into you. That's something I always encourage. Steal my stuff.
Mm. Dale, can I say we're just about out of time? A huge thank you for sharing with us today and giving us the time. Dale, as you always do, you don't just, present the theory behind things. You always give us very practical things to take away. I love the fact you've told everybody steal all of that information because I'm very keen to share with so many colleagues across the world. And what I love, as I said, is that practical things you allow us to take away and implement. And as you said, experiment, try something and see, what's going to work. So Dale, a huge thank you. We have recorded the session, so we will share your recording with all of the people who registered today and other colleagues. And now that you've suggested, we are very happy to share your slides with them as well. And as you said, you're happy to answer any questions. Dale, your insights are always phenomenal. You always impress when you present. So thank you so very much again for your time and for the audience and all the fabulous questions today as well. Wonderful. Great
My
session.
pleasure, and I look forward to continuing the conversation.
Thank you so much, Dale, and take care.
You
Goodbye,
too.
everybody.
Have a good day.